All right, so I'm going to do a subtractive texture. I'm going to use the thicker slab that I made earlier that I allowed to set up to be a little bit stiffer, so it's more along the line of a cheese hard. And I'm just going to take a tool and start carving into it and seeing what sort of marks I'm making. I like to use a larger area than what I actually need. My end result is going to be that 4 by 4 inch square, but I don't really I haven't made a texture. I'm just guessing on what I'm going to do. This exercise is all about play, so grab a tool and do something weird to your clay. I decided that I wanted to use one of my loop tools that I got in the main throwing kit. And I'm using the larger side, and I'm trying to I want to make a nice little texture that kind of reminds me of the water on when you're looking down into a pool. um, and and it has sort of kind of a diamondish patternish thing to it. I don't know. So it's got raised and lowered edges. I think that might play really nice with the glaze and how it's going to pool. And you can kind of see that I'm starting to get a little bit more confident in my mark making. I've decided that I need to do a little bit more of a twist to it as opposed to just a pull and up, so that it can have a little bit more of a swoop. Um, and so that's why I start off kind of over in the corner, and then I'll see what sort of thing that I like, and I get a little bit more confident as I'm moving along. And again, this is all about playing. If you're looking for, the other thing is I waited until this was a little bit stiffer. If you're looking for nice clean lines, then you want to be working with clay that is a little bit more along the lines of leather hard. So leather hard means that it's kind of like a cheddar cheese consistency. It's still a little bit flexible, but it's not just gushy. So I can run my fingers over it and things don't just smear all over the place. If I was doing this on a really wet piece of clay, the lines and kind of the detail that I'm picking up right now just would not be there. I'm also starting to feel a little bit more confident now of what I'm doing. I can do this a little bit faster. I have a little bit bigger mark making. I feel more confident. And this is something that's really important, that you sit there and you play and you don't just assume that it's going to go right the first time. We'll speed this up a little bit so you don't have to watch me do the whole stinking thing. But you get the general idea of how I'm putting this together and kind of playing around with it. Once I get the whole surface done, then that's when I'm going to actually go back and kind of frame out what it is that I'd like. So I'll give myself a general idea. So I'm like, okay, which part do I like? I like it kind of right there. Okay, cool. That's going to be my spot. We'll clean up a little bit of crumbs that I don't want on there. Maybe fix a little mark making. So now that I get to choose the spot that I want, now I'll take my ruler and I'm going to measure out just a little tiny bit bigger than 4 inches. So we're talking 4 inches and maybe 4 1/8 or at most 4 1/4 wide. I want to go just a smidge bigger than what I need, just because because the clay's still fairly wet, clay does shrink down. Now, I will get a much better cut working on this because it is leather hard rather than being just fresh straight out of the bag or just freshly rolled. If I did this when it was freshly rolled, I'm going to end up with a whole bunch of kind of warped edges and that sort of stuff. So I want you guys to be really thoughtful about how you're measuring. So I'm measuring up at the top, and I'm going to put my little mark here at 4 inches there, and then I'm going to measure again down at the bottom. So measure twice, cut once, guys. So I'm measuring both of those, and that way I can actually line this up so that I will get an even square. I'm really looking for an even square. If you're doing a whole bunch of tile projects, which is kind of what we're doing here, you don't want to have tiles that aren't actually square, that are some weird sort of rectangle, not actually square thing, or diamond shaped thing. So I am judging you on on whether or not you can make a square, guys. So I measure in both areas, then I make my cut and I can pull all this extra stuff away, and now I have my tile. I'm really happy with that sort of texture and kind of the shadows that it creates. And there's my thickness. And I'm going to set this aside so that I can actually put a back on it. But I'm going to let that set up a little bit before I do that. I'll just check and make sure that my square is actually a square, because it does feel like there's like a little bit off somewhere around here. So, aha, there it is. I'll just shave off that extra little bit. And now I'm very happy because it actually looks like a square. And I'm just tapping it on the edges here so that I can have, so I can clean that up and make sure that I actually have like a nice clean edge and no wobbles. Clean up the edges, done. Yay, now I'll let this set up and then I can carve into the back later.